for the University of California Cooperative Extension Master Gardener Program. And before we get started, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I am not an entomologist, but I did discover the science of horticulture at Modesto Junior College. And from there, I went to Cal Poly State University to study horticulture. And along the way, I had to make an insect collection. So I had to catch all these different insects and pin them and make them into this really neat collection. And I got very interested in insects and their life cycle. So I'm excited today to tell you a little bit more about them and how to protect them, and a little bit about the Master Gardener program. The program has been around for quite a few years. In California, it started in the 1980s. However, we did not have this program in Stanislaus County until 2018. And this is thanks to the CEO's office and the Board of Supervisors for supporting us. So if you aren't familiar with our program, our goal and our mission is to train people like yourself about home horticulture, pest management, and sustainable landscaping practices. And I have a clipboard or two here going around, so if you're interested in signing up, we have a newsletter, and you can learn more about our programs and becoming a Master Gardener. And you may have already met some of our Master Gardeners out at the Turlock Community Gardens. Hector, Roe, Ted, quite a few folks have been giving classes out there, and so hopefully we will see you out there at some point. So let's get started. What is a pollinator? So strictly defined, it's any animal that moves pollen between male and female flowers. All right, so now get ready for a pop quiz. You didn't know you're coming to class on a Saturday morning. So a pollinator can be any of these insects here: butterflies, moths, flies, beetles, wasps. Today we're going to talk mostly about honeybees. And I'm sure a lot of you already know that pollinators are important. 1 out of every 3 bites that we eat is thanks to these pollinators. They visit the flowers so they can drink nectar and feed on pollen, and while they're doing that, they're transporting these pollen grains. So of course, everybody knows the most famous pollinator, right? The honeybee. But here's the pop quiz. How many other bees exist in California? Can I get a number? A lot. Okay, what did I hear? 27. I thought the price is right. Anybody else? 50, 100. Okay, get ready to have your mind blown. There are 1,600 native species. Yeah, when I learned this, I was like, what? And of course, I want to give a shout out to the wasps. They get a lot of hate, but they are fantastic pollinators. And you can learn more about some of the common bees that you can see in your garden in this really great book. Here's pop quiz number 2. I'm gonna give you guys like 15 seconds. Well, you guys didn't even need 15 seconds.
6, 5.
5, 6. Okay, here's the answer. Whoever guessed 6 gets 10 points on the pop quiz. So most people know this is a fly. We've got a bumblebee, a butterfly. This is a little grasshopper. The rest of these circled guys here are bees. We've got mining bees and blue orchard bees, and of course the honeybee. This little guy right here is a trick. This is actually a wasp. So these are your bees. So in order to protect pollinators, we need to know not just what they look like, but we need to know where they live. So only 1% of bees live in nests that are considered hives. However, this is another thing that really surprised me when I found out. 70% of those 1,600 native bees live in the ground. So as gardeners, we always tell people mulch, 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 use compost, and that is important, but you also want to leave some ground bare so that the pollinators can live under the ground. Here's an example of a bee that lives in the ground. It's called a mining bee, and you can see this little hole that it's made in the ground. This right here is a ball of pollen, and this is the little larvae, and this insect is going to live under the ground for about a year before it undergoes the amazing process of metamorphosis and comes out as this bee. Then it's only going to live for 2 or 3 weeks, and when it comes out, it's probably hungry, right? So as gardeners, we want to make sure that we have some pollen and nectar sources for these insects. Here's another bee that lives in the ground. It's called the sweat bee. The males are metallic green with stripes on their abdomen, and the female are all green. Some of you have probably seen these, right?
Yes.
They're really small. If you've never seen them, start developing your bug vision, which you do by just going out and looking for insects. I don't know really why they're called sweat bees. It's said that they are attracted to sweat. Another really neat bee that lives in the ground is the longhorned bee. Now, only the females are allowed in the nest. At night, the males have to go find somewhere else to sleep. Yeah, so it's like the no boys allowed club right here. They all gotta hang out. About 3 years ago, I was out in my garden, and it was just absolutely amazing when I saw all of these longhorn bees sleeping on cosmos flower. So plant different types of flat daisy-like flowers and look for these guys. And again, their life cycles are pretty short, so keep looking and you'll see them. The other 30% of bees live in stem and wood. So sometimes we'll get a call with the Master Gardener helpline, and someone will say, I have a cherry tree and there are these really weird insects coming out of it, or I'm hearing this strange buzzing and I'm scared. And a lot of times it ends up being this pollinator, the carpenter bee, and it can sometimes by some people be considered a pest because the female will drill holes underneath the eaves in different places. They might like a wood pile or, like I said, a tree. The females really don't sting unless they're highly provoked. The males act like they can sting, but they can't. They fly around and they buzz everybody off, like, these are our flowers, you go. And if you want to try a really cool garden party trick, if you see one of these males, you can grab them in your hand and hold them, although it makes them very angry. And even when you do it, because of course I had to try, it's a little scary, but they don't sting. And you can see they have the most beautiful green eyes if you can see them up close. Here are some other bees that live in wood, leafcutter bees and mason bees. And if you want, you can provide habitat for them, like this little structure here. You've probably seen them for sale at different stores. You just want to really follow the directions and not make sure to clean this out every year so that the spaces don't harbor any pests or diseases for them. All right, so now that we kind of know what some of these pollinators look like and where they live, we want to help feed them. So just like our former speaker was talking about compost, keeping your compost pile happy with all the microbes, you want to keep your pollinators happy. And we, as our program, because we ended up not being able to do so many classes in person, had several classes online. So we have a class all on native pollinators, we have one on butterflies, and we have one specifically on pollinator plants for the bees. So we'll just quickly go through a couple of plants. The number one plant cited by researchers at like UC Berkeley and UC Davis, where they've had the most visitors of different species, is California buckwheat. This is a great plant, comes in lots of different colors and shapes and sizes. How many of you have poppies ready to bloom or already blooming? Excellent. This is a great plant for bees. And ceanothus is a gorgeous shrub that more people should plant. It does a lot of times get enormous, but if you want a small one, you can look for valley violet. And then other plants like goldenrod and asters are nice to extend the season. Seaside daisy is a beautiful native plant, and a lot of these pollinators evolved along with the plants. And so you may think, oh, I've got snapdragons and pansy and the bees are visiting them. However, it's sort of like going to fast food when you should really get a salad. So they're not getting as much nutrition from some of these different plants. So if you are wondering, what do these plants look like, where can I see them, you can visit the Loma Native Garden in Modesto, and that is run by one of our master gardeners. And it's a beautiful place, and I want to invite all of you to come to the Modesto Pollinator Festival on April 9th. There's going to be a parade. Some of the folks that are here are going to be there with different fun activities for kids and adults. We're gonna have an entomologist there that's going to show a collection and talk a lot about the importance of pollinators, so we hope to see you there. Now, sometimes it's hard to find some of these plants. You need to look for a native plant nursery or maybe make a trip somewhere, but they are available. And one thing I will say about our local nurseries here is if you call and say, I want Ceanothus Valley Violet, they will do their best to try and get that for you and source it. So never give up on that. But if you do want to try some non-natives that also attract bees, and the good thing about most of these plants is that they are drought tolerant. The one thing we have to stress though is that if you buy a plant that's drought tolerant and you put it in the ground and you don't water it, what's going to happen? It will die. Believe it or not, I have seen garden projects people have installed and not watered and then been completely shocked that they died. They need at least a year or two of regular watering to get established. So this is a great little plant. It's called Teucrium. It can be more of a ground cover. There's a blue one that's a little bit bigger. How many of you already have rosemary? This is a great plant. It's already been blooming for like a month. You'll see the bees are there. There's different ones. Some climb, some are low growing, some are hanging. Any kind of a salvia is a great plant. It's in lots of different colors. The bees love it, and the hummingbirds will find this type of plant. They love it. This is another one. It's a catmint. It's not as attractive to cats as catnip, so you probably won't have cats laying in your garden. But this is a great one that is a ground cover that's attractive to a lot of pollinators. So I already mentioned the different classes that we have on our YouTube channel, so I hope you'll check them out. We do have some on other topics like building a worm bin, so getting into vermicomposting, composting, and a couple other different topics. And we are also on social media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, so we hope that you will follow us there. We have upcoming classes that we are going to be giving. We're gonna be at the Turlock Community Gardens with spring vegetable gardening. We're gonna be giving a class on pollinators. There'll be classes on composting. We also give classes at the Ag Center in Modesto. We will give classes anywhere we are invited. We're working with one of the speakers today, Everett, to do classes out at his community garden. So we're always excited and interested to be a part of your project. So if anybody has any questions.
We have lots of time for questions.
All right. Okay, Cherie.
Could you review what the cost, time commitment, and how those classes are constructed for the Master Gardener?
Oh, about the Master Gardener program, sure. So the program, it is about a 19-week commitment. So as a individual, you are trained. The classes are presented by University of California advisors. So for example, some of the classes would be what is horticulture, what is the science of horticulture, also soil. So we have an in-depth class all about soils and how to make your soil better, which is always compost, compost, compost. And then we have classes that are more specifically about how do you grow vegetables, how do you grow fruit trees, what is sustainable landscaping, composting, all these different things. And then there is a fee associated with this that pays for several of the books that you get and a couple of the other things that you receive. And then at the end of this time, and during this time you are taking quizzes, they're not pop quizzes, you'll already know what they are ahead of time, but it's like an open book quiz test. And at the end of this, you are asked to give back 50 hours of volunteer time to the community. And the way you do that is you can be a part of the helpline, you can go out to a community garden or any other place and give classes. We have booths that we're trying to get back now that things have slowed down, or as far as being outdoors. We can be at, like the Modesto Farmers Market, we're gonna be at the Oakdale Farmers Market. And since our program only started in 2018, we're still building opportunities and places where we want to be. And we actually have several Master Gardeners here today. How many? Let's see, raise your hand. We have like 5 or 6, and we've got 2 or 3 people in the training class. So if you have any questions, Gary, Sandy, we've got Hector, I think Those are the three that have gone through the program. If you wanna ask people, how's the class going, we've got Manjeet and Rachel and Stephanie. So, yeah, there are a lot of folks here if you have any questions. And then there was another question, yes?
I missed this, you might have just said it, but I wasn't listening very carefully.
That happens.
Is there a charge?
Yes, there is a fee, and that is dependent on the county. We do have scholarships,
So what does ours cost?
however, ours is $200.
Total.
Mhm. But, you know, I don't wanna date this recording, cause, you know, things can end up going up. Yes, Stephanie?
And the classes are every Thursday, 8:30 to 12:30.
Yes, thank you for filling that in for us. The classes are weekly, for about 19 weeks, for three and a half hours. And during, pardon?
It's a great program.
Oh, thank you, Cherie says it's a great program. Yeah, so we appreciate that, and, what we do is we have a speaker come and talk. So for example, in our office, we have, advisors, and their main work is, for example, one of them works with vegetable crops with different, organizations in Stanislaus County. They might be growing tomatoes, they work with, urban and community gardens to help answer any questions they have. We have advisors that are specifically studying peach trees, almond trees. A lot of great research has come out of cooperative extension and A&R as far as, for example, the advisor to our program has found that we really don't need to water walnut trees as extensively as we have been doing, and so that's going to help provide the information to farmers so that they know, you know, they can save water, especially in, you know, this time of drought. And so, all of the classes are taught by university experts. Any other questions? Yes,
Yeah, I
Melissa?
just thought to point out a quick distinction between the Master Gardeners program and then the classes that are offered at the community gardens and things of that sort.
Yes, okay, thank you. So we have a training program, which was what I was referring to, and that only happens once, we're not sure if we're gonna do it every other year or every year, but that happens. And then the actual, classes we do, there are public classes, whether they're at the Turlock Community Gardens or at the Ag Center or online. And that's totally different and open to everybody in the public, and those are free classes. Thank you. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.